Yeah. Oh, Leslie.
Cool, man.
Hey, hey guys.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, hey.
Hey.
Pratik. Oh man,
Yeah. Um.
we are each time I see you on the call, I think, man, Pratik is here in Austin, uh, and I haven't seen him in like 2-3 months now.
Yeah. Mohit was talking to me, I think, day before yesterday, about your chat, and he was like, "Yeah, it's gaining a lot of traction, and it's going in a good direction."
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. I'm still very hopeful for some academic research or some amount of the things that will come out of here now that the tool is probably in a decent place to begin like churning through tests, that there might be
Yeah. Yeah.
some insights that
Yeah, like I've been doing some of the tests trying to make some low level assessments of the numbers that we are seeing. Yesterday, Girish pushed in the Linkerd stuff. I haven't had a chance to go through the Linkerd stuff, but I think when I have some numbers from Istio and comparing them against a different service mesh, that would be good way to put things into perspective.
yeah, truly. um, it just is something as simple as here's the same app, same infrastructure,
Yeah, yeah,
different mesh.
correct.
um,
Like I was load testing and with Istio and whatever setup that I have of 8 core machine and things like that. The QPS, the maximum queries per second, does not seem to go beyond like about 580, 600 for a simple 200 kilobyte, 300 kilobyte response data. Similar results. How does it work against other service meshes? And oh, it's a 8 node machine.
oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, speaking of, feel free to actually, I guess as we kind of get into the meeting here, feel free to capture down those specifics. I mean, that's actually a great.
Yeah, yeah. I'll probably put in a few bullet points for you to approve.
Nice, yeah, please. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we need to make sure that you've got the ability to edit, because I do not need to gate your um, contributions. So Pratik, yeah. Oh, I see. So Pratik, it's not your University of Texas email address. It is.
Uh, Pratik S is my email address.
Okay. It's not Pratik is Sahu at Gmail.
That is also email ID that I use, so either would be fine.
Okay. Yeah, whichever one gets you into editing.
Okay, I have editing mode privileges in my UTexas one, so I can write from there.
Oh,
That's
nice.
cool.
Okay, cool. Very good. Well, okay. Well, yeah. Just as we go to tee that up, let me make sure that we've got everybody acknowledged on the call. So we've got Pranav, Pratik, Girish, Lee. Okay. Um, a couple of things to. So we don't have new members to welcome today. So I think we do have some topics to chat through. So there's sounds like a contributors update. So one from Pratik. I've got a topic on Google Summer of Code. I've got a little bit of an update, I think, on HashiCorp's behalf. I know Garish has got an adapters update, as well as we've got an installation an update on installation in terms of just some of the code changes that have happened since last we met. I'm just trying to think of the other topics real quick. I think last time we already spoke to two of the places that Meshery has been presented. It'll be probably just good to note again where it's being presented. So next week it's at Container World. I guess, which is a reminder, if you guys, Pratik and Pranav, if you guys don't like the pictures that are being used in the slide deck of you, now's your chance to change it, because we're gonna use it at Container World, DockerCon after that, and then KubeCon EU after that. I think there's another thing to talk about with respect to CNCF traffic SIG. Who else has got topics? Let's see if we can get all of our topics lined up. I know we've got at least 2 adapters to talk about, one more than the next. And then I gotta say, we've been busy. It's between Google Summer of Code and other interested contributors. So talk about a new welcome guide. Okay, fair enough. We might have all of the topics listed out. So to go through those, I'll say that with Google Summer of Code, that program, and Pratik, thank you for sending that around, and Pranav, I think between the two of you guys, passing that along. I had passed it over to not the ECE students. I think you guys did that well enough, but I passed it over to the computer science school as well. I think they just sent over a link to Google Summer of Code and maybe not to Meshery specifically. That's okay. We did get a couple of folks reaching out. So Pratik, I don't know if you know, or Pranav, if you guys know John Leonard. Does he ring a bell? But he had said that he got an email from someone at UT Austin.
I am not familiar with John.
Okay. It may have just come to him separately. So anyway, about 3 folks have come out. So Anad, whom you might have been seeing some of his questions and him getting familiar with the project in the channel. He had heard about the project through Google Summer of Code. He didn't get an application in before the deadline, which was on Tuesday, but he still wants to contribute anyway. And so that's great. It would have been great had he gotten an application in so that he could get a stipend at the end of the summer. But either way, it's great. Sako, whose last name I can't pronounce or spell, I was half anticipating that he might be on the call today. He is, he will be going through the Google Summer of Code program, and so hopefully we'll get his submission accepted. He had previously worked on Engine Mesh, which is a project that I had some doings with. Engine Mesh was Istio with the Envoy sidecar proxy displaced by Nginx, and that was the Engine Mesh project. That project has been set down, and Nginx has gone a different way. I think like Engine Unit and some other things. But he had worked on that, so has familiarity with part of what we're trying to do here. So I want to warmly welcome Sako when he comes. I think John is another interested party. I'm not sure if he'll come to bear on the project or not. He doesn't have a lot of familiarity with this space. So, and then honestly, I can't remember who else we've been talking to, but enough people that we end up writing a welcome newcomers guide. So I'll link it in our meeting minutes, but give a read to it if you would, and see if there's things that we're missing or the questions that you guys would have as you go to contribute to a project like this. I think in part Garish probably got sick of repeating himself, so we finally put it into paper. Yeah. Okay, the other update here is that I'll let Garish speak to this later. So on the adapters front, HashiCorp has come back earnestly interested. Garish, I actually didn't read through Pavani's email. Can you recap it here for the team?
She was just asking if we have any updates for her,
Okay.
and she is very willing to actually get us in touch with one of their lead engineers who can probably take whatever we have and move forward. If I remember, I think this was an email 2 or 3 days back from Pavani. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Now I'm sad that I didn't see it earlier. So okay. So and then the update. Do you want to give the update on Chaim's behalf? I know he joined last week. Basically, it sounded like they had an alpha state adapter ready to push.
Yes. So Hing is still working on it. I think they recently started, but he did actually share his plan with us, which is actually to use their shared control plane, which is a control plane on the SaaS, which will not be hosted by the individuals, but rather it'll be part of the Octane SaaS. But they also have this controller component along with the data plane that will be deployed as part of their adapters. Is kind of what he was sharing. He said he was just checking his access rights last week, but I think in the very near future, he will start pushing updates. So we're pretty close. Not sure about DockerCon, but I'm pretty sure he'll have something for KubeCon.
Very good. And then we'll go over the Linker D adapter a little bit later. Pratik, since I'm bringing it up, have you had a chance to give that a shot just yet?
Sorry, I was on mute. I had a look at it. I haven't given it a shot per se. I've been thinking of what are the good metrics to measure mesh on, like stress testing, looking up at the startup latencies, what are the maximum QPS that we're getting. There are some threads, even though I'm requesting for a particular amount of queries per second, it maxes out at some limit, and that limit is not independent of threads. It's how many threads are running, how many cores are on the machine, and things like that. So kind of looking into micro benchmarking the different components, of which component adds on to how much latency. And those were the kind of lines where I have been working on for the past week. I saw the Linkerd stuff, but I haven't really gone and tested it out yet.
Got it. Well,
Sorry?
Since we're on your topic, let's dig in a little bit more. So the results that you're collecting, those are being some of those are being persisted to within Meshery Cloud, and from there we can generate some reports and some reports on those.
There are some of the reports, there are some of the data that I'm collecting from the Meshery. Some of them are from the CLI logs that we have collected. I haven't there are some numbers that pop up. I'm looking at those numbers and trying to make sense to it. Maybe I can put those number in an Excel sheet, and then we can figure out if we can combine these results and create some sort of reports out of it.
Awesome. You finished my sentence.
Oh, yeah. I did not see you writing on that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. There's a shared Google folder that if you link to, if you don't have access to, we'll make sure that you get it so that you can create a sheet and begin iterating there. The further along we get there, the earlier we'll be able to begin to speak to some of those, or maybe even next week. Next week, for sure, we're going to want to have at least a couple of example results.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's great. That's already insightful, though. So let me regurgitate one of the points that you'd said, and that was that it looked like, near as you can tell right now, one of the constraints of the tests that you're running is not particularly tied to the number of concurrent threads.
Basically, if we have some number of cores and we are creating threads which are larger than the number of cores, then the cores are time shared between the threads that we have initiated. So the queries which each thread gets to execute depends on how the scheduling of those thread works on the core.
Okay.
So that is one thing that I have figured out, and that's kind of intuitive as well. Trying to figure out what is exactly the scheduling of those numbers. I can probably talk with Girish more about it if I can find some code in the HTO source code to figure out what exactly is happening there.
Yeah, and so in your estimation, as we get a higher number of threads than there are cores available, is it intuitive and correct to consider that all you're doing is introducing latency as you go to ask the CPU to schedule those threads?
I think it is intuitive to say that it does have an overhead, and it is also intuitive to say that each of the threads will get less time to execute whatever we want them to execute. But as per to what is the overhead onto it, I think there needs to be some more work done to quantify exactly how much overhead that has.
Okay. And then of the startup latencies that you have here, is this with respect to how quickly Envoy will start up and begin processing network traffic?
The startup latency is basically like the Envoy deploys and starts up a particular function. So there is a latency from where on the actual code that we want to execute starts working out. So that is the like I have not seen a response in that amount of time, and after that I see continuous responses back, which matches the actual function time that I see from the CLI reports.
Okay.
So that needs to be delved deeper to see what exactly the startup time latency is containing of.
Okay. And do you have a mechanism to determine whether or not that's like due to just the TCP connection being formed and the handshaking, or if that's more due to Envoy itself being prepared to?
Correct. It can be either or both. So I would assume that the TCP connection would not be a major component because it is on my local machine and I'm running the experiments locally. So like the handshake and things might not come into picture, but that is one of the lines that I'm going to look into. I am not. I cannot make a comment as to if there is or not to that as of now.
Yeah. Yep. No. Yeah. I wonder if one thing we might one thing that we were anticipating that we would have to do is update the design document as we go with new types of tests that we either that we consider to be material and we should perform, or certain tests that we might rule out. And maybe just an encouragement and reminder. I think you're finding some already. And so maybe, update the design document with, those types of tests.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Pranav and Girish. Do you have any other comments for Pratik? And Pavan is on the call as well. Concurrent threads. Yeah. And so this is Pratik. Just if we think about this for a moment, I don't know if this is necessarily novel research or not, but I mean, for me, it's interesting. Just not knowing this is, as someone goes to run a given application at scale, and they are receiving 500 requests per second, and they know that they're in a certain type of environment in a virtual machine with so many cores. I think that the interesting thing to derive from here might be, I don't know if we can tell them a formula by which they would maximize their efficiency in terms of how many queries per second they should allow through based on relative to their type of infrastructure.
Definitely. I think a lot of these Lambda kind of environments do that as the demand grows. But if a particular customer has a VM setup with particular number of cores, and we can definitely say that, okay, for a targeted NQPS based on these, based on your other environment setup and the latencies, we can say, we can tell them that, okay, you might need to increase your core by 2, 4, or something of that sort.
Got understood. Okay. Yeah, that would be super interesting. To be able to, as a result of this research, to be able to come out with a formula that that tunes your mesh, based on your underlying infrastructures.
Yep.
All right. Well, then going back up real quick, just to say, I think maybe we'll try to do a demo and walk through it. But the notion that Meshery as a project to help provide very detailed and granular levels of knobs that people can tweak and tune for what different types of tests that they can run. Hopefully Meshery ultimately will be a tool like that, but not having all of those, it at least and minimally initially needs to have a great user experience, be very easy to use, and let really facilitate adoption, let the layman pick it up and go to answer some of their basic questions. What is the overhead, just at a high level? And so to that end, and hopefully to benefit Pranav and Pratik and others, through a focus on part of how you do the quick start, how you do the quick start install, hopefully that will be improved. So let's take a look at that here in a second. Last update was that just as the CNCF, we had presented to the CNCF networking working group. It was a very small working group that had really more or less faded over time. We're looking at reinvigorating that and really reincarnating it into a new special interest group called Traffic SIG, Traffic Special Interest Group. which is going to encompass different types of projects like pub sub models, gRPC, service proxies, service meshes, and I expect we'll get a lot more activity going on in there. So it'll be something that hopefully we're announcing at KubeCon. Okay, well with that, maybe we'll go down to Garish, if you want to go next. And then Garish, you're muted, probably.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Sure. Just give me 1 second. Hey, all right. I'm going to share my screen and let's talk about some of the changes that were actually added recently. Okay. So hope you guys can see my screen now. Can you guys see my screen?
We can.
Okay, excellent. So, there were a few changes that that happened this week. Like I had listed, one of the major changes was actually the Linkerd adapter. We have it functional up to a certain point, in the sense right now installation and uninstallation of Linkerd itself, and two of its demo applications. One is called the Emoji Voto, and the other one is called the Books app. Installing from Meshery, and also, like I said, uninstalling also works. A bare bones adapter for Meshery and console was created. Let me actually see if I can just take you guys there. So, but the console one is really bare bones. So, Linkerd. So you can see so this adapter was just pushed to a fully functional state pretty much end of Wednesday, I would say early yesterday. There were some fine tunings that were done, but this adapter is now functional. Mainly it actually does three functions pretty well, and of course the option for applying custom YAMLs on the cluster. I've tried to retain them so that across the board any adapter, at least the ones which are being developed by the team here, has that functionality, so they're not just limited to the ones to the operations we are providing them. So that is there. Then other than this, the console adapter is also created, but it's very bare bones. As of today, the console adapter, it'll compile a Docker image is ready, but then it doesn't really do anything. All we have done is kind of stub out all the service methods that were needed, and I've made it compilable and ready to go. So hopefully, just the update that I gave a few minutes back, Pavani and her team will be able to take it from here and then kind of start adding functionalities. Is kind of where the console adapter is now. The other update that was done was actually you guys can actually see the two fields here. So as part of the test run, this has been long pending. I've always wanted to come back and add this, but since I was busy with adding the other functionalities, I've just not been able to do it. But this week, I try to squeeze this in. So every time a test is run, I'm collecting a friendly name for the test. It doesn't have to be a unique name, but a friendly name, so as a user, however you would like to, kind of remember this field is kind of, or remember this the name of the test you ran, could be something like Istio version 1.1, and book info is probably one, or the book info no mesh is probably one, something like that. So friendly name for the test is actually something that is added recently, and this one here is a service mesh name, and you can see it is not a mandatory field. So which means if you want to tag this with a service mesh, you can actually enter a name. Right now, I'm not limiting it to what you can enter. Eventually we could, saying that, hey, you know what, so here are all the meshes, we know about. So, here you go is kind of like what we could eventually make this to be, and also kind of a no mesh option or something. But then as of today, like you are free to enter whatever you want, and of course the URL and the remaining two fields have not changed. The other change is actually the duration field. Like earlier, it used to be a number field, like for example, like this one, and I had kind of set it to minutes. But of course, there are times when people just want to run a test for 10 seconds, or maybe you want to run it for like an hour, or something like that. So yeah, if you hover over it, I also have a tooltip which actually says you can actually use a H, M, or a S suffix for hour, minute, or seconds. So right now, the default value I have set there is 30 seconds, but you can actually change it to like 5 minutes, for example. It does have validations of if it doesn't have a value, or if you have an invalid value, it'll usually show it by by a red marker around the field. So that was actually one thing that was recently added. Other than that, I think if we go to the results tab, you can see that the name now appears. All the old tests did not have a name, so that's okay. But the new tests onwards, for example, I ran one yesterday and that one has a name. I have not tied it to a mesh. In the previous case, I again had a hard-coded mesh name, which was Istio, tied to everything, which you can actually see here. This would pretty much be the case, if you're running an old version, we always see Istio for the value, because that value was not populated on the Meshery side, but more on the SaaS side. So I've taken that off, and now I've let the users enter whatever they want for it. And I think I had probably mentioned this, that some of these fields are actually sortable, and again, you can also search by them. So all the searching and sorting functionalities were actually implemented as part of the migration to PostgreSQL, which was executed last week. So this is I'm just reiterating on that. So now coming back to the adapter itself, just before I actually show that, just give me 1 second. So now the mission on which I'm actually running this is actually not that powerful. So I'm going to actually connect back to our Istio adapter for just 1 second. And I see there is the book info app that's deployed, so I'm going to remove that for a few minutes. And then I'm also going to remove the Istio installation. Now, I know you guys are actually seeing my screen, but let me see if I can actually also share my other one. Just give me 1 second. So probably I'll share the entire screen. Okay, that'll be better. Okay, cool. So if you guys can see the screen. So again, I'm back on the same interface. Now, the reason why I actually tried to share the entire screen is actually that you guys can actually see my shell. Check if all the stuff are deleted. So you can see I just executed a delete of the Books Info app and the Istio itself, and you can see that it's still under progress. Istio was removed, but all the other pods in the default namespace were removing, and now they're all gone, which is fantastic. So switching adapters. So I'm just going to actually again choose my config file. Again, we are working on improving this experience, so probably very soon, we'll actually have this changed. So most of the guys on this call, can probably know the Istio adapter was running on port 10,000 by default. Now in this case, it's going to be for Linkerd, I've chosen 10,001, and for console, I've chosen 10,002. And again, right now I have all the services running on the local, hence it's localhost. But if you're running using Docker Compose or using the CLI tool, which is almost ready, you will actually be entering the service name, which is Meshery-Istio or Meshery-Linkerd. So yeah, please don't get confused by the local host I'm using here. So now this will actually connect it to the Linkerd adapter. So now if I go to the play, you can see the options have changed. So again, all these options are again coming from the adapter code, not hard-coded in Meshery itself. So I'm going to first try installing Linkerd. So now what this does is Linkerd's way of installing the mesh, or the easy way to install Linkerd is actually using a CLI they have. What this tool essentially does exactly that. It actually first talks to GitHub, gets the latest version information, and then uses the URL information from the metadata. It actually tries to download the CLI, puts it in a temp folder, and then from then on, it actually tries to execute appropriate commands using that CLI to actually install Linkerd. Now, the difference between Linkerd and Istio is that Istio is actually something which usually gets deployed at the cluster level. It still will be deployed in a namespace, but in order to keep it simple, like for Istio adapter, I'm totally ignoring the namespace field for the Istio's installation, but the book info installation, for example, would be using the namespace that you were entering here. Now, the case with Linkerd is a bit different, so even though it is like Istio in many ways. It still is known to be like kind of confining its installation to a particular namespace. So I'm going to actually pick a namespace called Linkerd NS, like Linkerd namespace, and then I'm going to actually choose install. But before that, I just want to ensure that I don't have such a namespace in the cluster. So you can see I don't have a namespace. This is again a remnant from the previous install, but I'm just going to leave it there. So there is no namespace called Linkerd NS, so I'm just going to use that, and I'm going to try to install Linkerd. And if you guys have been using Meshery, you probably know that the installation of all these takes some time. So I've tried to actually push them to the background, which means it'll happen asynchronously, and you can see that the Linkerd is now deployed. Again, if you click on it, there's nothing fancier here. So the latest version of Linkerd is now deployed, is what it says. I'm just going to dismiss all the messages here. So it claims that Linkerd is installed, so I just want to ensure that did that really happen? So you can see a new namespace did come up. So now I'm going to actually see if there's anything in the namespace. So Linkerd NS get all, so to show what all it actually installed or installing, and you can see that it actually installed a whole lot of things in a matter of seconds, which is very nice. Like a whole lot of pods, services, deployments, and replica sets. So pretty much Linkerd is installed. And one other thing is that I'm actually installing Linkerd with the proxy injector. That's an option. So it's totally up to you to manually inject the sidecars or use their new proxy injector, which can actually inject sidecars automatically, just like how Istio has been doing it. Now, since as part of Meshery, we're trying to keep it simple, I am actually installing it with the proxy injector sidecar. So that's one thing to note here. And apart from that, you can see, Linkerd actually is also deploying Prometheus and Grafana for its use, and we can actually go and take a look at it if need be. So this is the installation of Linkerd, and you can see it was very quick. Now I'm going to actually switch and install. So you can see here there are two demo apps. One is the Books Info, the other one is the Emoji Voto. So I'm going to first deploy the Emoji Voto app. So let's try that. So it says it pretty much did. Okay. Now one thing to note here is that with Istio, the way the deployments have been going is that when a demo application is deployed, of course after the deployment, Meshery also deploys the gateway and the virtual service that's required or that is needed for exposing the service, the demo application, on the Ingress gateway. So once you do that, all the applications are always accessed through the Ingress gateway, which is kind of the recommended way to access services on Istio. But that's probably not the case with Linkerd, because Linkerd does not really have the concept of an Ingress gateway. So essentially, that's how it is. I actually did a mistake, so you can actually see that I did choose Linkerd NS for the namespace, which is actually a bad thing, because what it did was it actually did deploy the Emoji Voto app. You can see the emoji stuff. Emoji stuff are all these four pods, sitting right next. So this is one thing to be cautious about, so which is actually a mistake which I did. So I'm just going to delete it and probably push it to its own namespace, so that we can visually see the stuff. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. Coming back.
So Girish, actually on that, that's maybe a good thing to highlight to Pratik and Pranav is
Absolutely.
That you're paying attention to and separating out the namespaces in which you're deploying the control plane, meaning the things that run Linkerd or the things that run Istio, and the sample app or the real app itself. You're doing it just for cleanliness and hygiene and the ability to look at things separately. But Pratik and Pranav, this is a good test case for us to capture in the design doc, is there's a bit of understanding whether or not there's a difference when you do put your application into the same network namespace. I'm sorry, not network namespace, but the same namespace, or separate it out, or put it in the same namespace as the controller, separate it out, or separate it into multiple namespaces. At scale, the number of namespaces, or rather, at scale, namespacing, and this is new in Istio 1.1. Istio 1.1 takes into account the way in which it provides updates to Envoy, and doesn't try to tell all envoys, give all envoys the an understanding of all of the services across the cluster and all of the namespaces. Rather, you can configure it to constrain the configuration that you give to a given envoy based on namespaces. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting design point that I'll look into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I just, I'm not sure if you observed, like I just uninstalled and reinstalled Linkerd in a matter of seconds, which is very nice. Okay, so now I'm just going to actually create a new namespace called emoji. So the other thing is that if the namespace given here doesn't exist, Meshery will create the namespace, which is kind of a nice thing. So I'm going to deploy the emoji photo app in the emoji ns01 namespace. So I'm just going to hit submit, and let's see if it actually comes up. So first I'm going to check if the namespace is created. You can see the new namespace was created like 4 seconds back. Just going to check what's deployed, and you can see like a whole lot of things are deployed in that namespace. Now the other thing is, so obviously now, like I said, with Linkerd, the service is deployed, but we don't know how to access it yet. So what I've tried to do, let me see if it actually works, is that if you click on the details here, you can see that towards the end, I'm also actually trying to suggest that the service is actually accessible on port 30193 on the Kubernetes host. So I'm going to try if I can actually access it 7558, I think. You can see, bingo, so the app comes up. So this was one of the things like I tried to mention in the Slack channel, that for Linkerd demo applications, I'm also trying to capture the port number on which the application will be exposed. So this is the emoji photo app, so I'm just going to dismiss this, and of course clear all the other notifications. Now the other thing I want to try show deploying is the books demo. So I'm just going to change the namespace name to books app 01 as a namespace name, and then I'm going to try to deploy them. So deploy it, and it says that it is deployed. So I'm just going to confirm that it is deployed, just to be sure. So books app 01, that's the namespace name. So I'm going to go inside it and see what's all deployed, just to ensure things are indeed functional. And you can see that all the pods are up. In my case, the pods started running very quickly, like matter of seconds, because since I've been using this host for all my tests, the container images already existed on the host. But if you are doing it, it'll take a little more time, because it'll also take time for pulling in the images. So please be a bit patient. Now the other thing is, like I said earlier, for the books app example, you can see if you click on the details. It actually says that now this application is exposed on a different port, which is 31777. Now you can, just going back to the emoji photo app, you can see that's deployed on a different host, sorry, a different port on the same host. So now I'm going to go here, and just to confirm, the port number is 31777. Let's see if that's functional. 31777. And voila, you can see the books info, the books app as part of the Linkerd's Linkerd deployment is up and running. Now this is actually, like I said, it's all on the mesh. Now how do you know that? So as part of the pods, you can see in the second column, you actually see a 2 out of 2 that actually says the number of containers in the pod. So why two containers in this pod is because one is the main application container, and the other one is actually the sidecar, which Linkerd has injected. So that's essentially what it is. If you guys want to actually take a closer look at it, we sure can.
So, Garish, let me interrupt for a second to say we've got 13 minutes left. I want to make sure that we both wrap up cover any of the other stuff outside of the Linkerd adapter that you have. Also, catch up with Pavan on logs.io. So maybe let's just flip quickly to Pavan.
Sure, sounds good.
And then we'll come back because I think you could go all day.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Yep. And go. Yeah. Yep. Pavan, take it away. And then Pavan, you might. We can't hear you. I know you're off of mute, but we still can't hear you. In case you're talking.
I am able to hear Pawan though.
Oh. Is it just me? Does that? Garish?
I can hear you.
Me too, actually.
Okay, it's just me. All right, I'll let somebody else take meeting minutes. That's funny.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, totally cool, man. Like, thanks. Hey, thanks for the update. I'm actually, taking notes as you were speaking. That's essentially what I was trying to do. Or, you know what, Pawan, feel free to go inside the community meeting minutes and record your update. Excuse me. I'm making notes. Ensure that, what I'm typing is actually the right thing. Awesome. Any other updates, Pawan? Okay, excellent, dude. Thank you. Yeah, shipping logs to LogZ, will be very helpful, because I think they give, a maximum of 3 gigs a month, which is kind of, way more than what Papertrail offers. Plus, I think the limit with Papertrail is kind of a hard limit. I think that's what Lee confirmed after, talking with them, which means, I think the first month they give you some more room, but then from the next month onwards, it's a maximum of 50 megs a month, which I'm pretty sure our app will actually kind of run out off in matter of days. So, which is the reason why we thought LogZ might actually be a better candidate. Yeah. Awesome. Lee, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Garish.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure if you heard Pawan, but Pawan's updates, he gave his updates. I've tried to record them in the meeting minutes. And that's pretty much it. I was just trying to explain to Pawan, why LogZ and not Papertrail, which is we have a monthly limit from Papertrail, which is a hard limit of 50 megs, which means they don't accept logs beyond 50 megs. Probably, Pawan, maybe that's the reason why you were seeing some logs there, some logs. I don't know, I'm just guessing. But I think with LogZ it might be better, and also I think LogZ has a Kibana-like interface, which I'm not sure if you guys have used, but if you guys have used Elasticsearch, I think you will feel more at home than the Papertrail's user interface. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, but the interface will be very similar. I think they built it off of Kibana, so Awesome. That's pretty much it, Lee. So I mean,
Okay.
that's what I was trying to explain to him. So yeah.
Yeah, very good. So I'm going to ask Pranav and Pratik and Pavan, having gone through this much earlier on, what do you think of the newcomers welcome guide? Because we're going to have a couple of folks coming for sure. So take a look if you get a moment. That'd be helpful. The other thing that I know that we put some effort into and is on the cusp of being done, but isn't quite there yet, is a refactored set of initial quick start instructions. So out on the project page, as people come to it, hopefully they'll understand its goals. Maybe they look at its architecture, maybe look at screenshots, maybe not, but they go to run it. Really the quick start way of doing this is, and the way in which I think for the most part we intend for people to at least do performance tests, is to run the tool outside of their cluster, so probably on their local machine. And so to that end, we've just been working on a couple of very short commands to download a bash script and run it, and basically give them a local point of control to start, stop, update, and expose Meshery logs. And by Meshery meaning the Docker Compose application, the handful of containers that Meshery is running, the adapters, and Meshery itself. For people to interface with Meshery using the command line here, very simply, to get up and going, and that new install script will also pop open your browser when it's done installing. And so you'll see a notification in the Slack channel probably later when that's up and ready. It'd be good to get each of your feedback, because each of you have been doing this process, and let's see if we got it right, and let's see if we got the instructions right as well. I think that was the quick start update, in terms of install. Outside of that, Pratik, I guess it'd be good if I'll try to remind myself to poke at you early next week and just collaborate a bit on, or see what I can do to help with respect to the spreadsheet that you're starting to form, the results you're starting to coalesce, some of the insights you're starting to identify,
Sure.
And Pratik, what's your sense of, well, just as part of the direction that you've gotten from Mohit or from him or not, is maybe this is a premature question. I'm thinking toward the end of the project, or at least toward your end of interest in the project. Hopefully that's not soon, but how do you imagine the results coming out? Like, is there from your perspective, is there a couple of places that you think you might want to submit to, or?
From a conference, from a academic conference, I'm not sure, because these are empirical results. So like at this point, from an academic innovative point of view, I am not sure where it would go, but from a point of view of presenting to places, as you have suggested, like KubeCon and CMCF meetings, that's definitely one aspect to it. There is a tentative end goal where, after doing some kind of micro benchmarking or benchmarking of service meshes, to bring in accelerator designs and things like that, and seeing if those help in a service mesh at all, or how and where and things like that. So those are some of the lines that me and Mohit have been discussing from an academic perspective.
Nice.
But that is a bit down the line. First of all, I want to
Yeah.
nail down how in normal server settings the meshes behave, and if I can nail down each component of the mesh, how does it behave across different meshes, and then think on those lines.
Makes perfect sense. Sounds good. By the way, there is the possibility of hosting a meetup on the 25th of April here in Austin. I'm going to plant that seed. Think about whether or not you'd like to come and either present outright or be part of a presentation of Meshery at a local meetup here in town. The 25th, a Thursday, a few weeks from now. Think about it if you're inclined or not. There's lots of slides that you can use and help that I can give you to go up and kind of tell people about some of the work you've been doing. So.
Yeah, sure, we'll discuss about the same. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else other than a weekend sitting out before you? Other what about 2 6-packs and
I am good.
Yeah, me too.
all right. Pranav, it's been good to talk to you, man. It's just been. I just wish you'd be quiet sometimes. Okay. I cannot hear Pranav. All right. Okay, very good. All right, I got my harassing in for the week, so I'm good. All right, guys, I'll talk to you early next week.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.